Alright lads and lasses, I'm Xcentric Racer and we are on Forza 7 for another XFRS. This time we had the B-Class SUVs. First race, they're headed to Road Atlanta and we're following the Transport McCann here, heading up to the first corner. There's a lot of chaos. Rothman's Porsche had to check up for a little bit. Red Mercedes ML went very wide out of turn 1, assisted or not, I couldn't tell you. However, this McCann is having to go up the inside of a Touareg. Is going to get that position to stick. This is going to be stuck on the outside of a couple of cars. One of the Land Rovers unfortunately just got assisted, got a hang out to dry there. Just ended up in the tyre bundle. You can see up ahead they're going 3 wide through the S's. There's just little room whatsoever heading up there. Unfortunately, the black Jeep, I don't know if it got tagged or not. However, it lost control and unfortunately took out the Rothman's McCann with it. Heading up to sort of the two right-handers at the top, this McCann had a lot of handling and actually wasn't too bad down the straight either. One of the Cayennes, it was a teal one, I think that's the colour, went very wide out of the first right-hander there, is going to be on a very compromised run heading down the straight. That Ford Wagoneer, I think it's called, really struggled down the straight. You could just see it just collapses compared to these cars. It looks like it's in a different class. It's just with how much it struggles down the straight. Up ahead, a G-Wagon and a Q7 get just rub doors and the Q7 misses its braking point. However, it does manage to keep it out the way of people and just puts it in a tyre bundle. The Trans McCann, well, it's a 3-way McCann battle. Trans McCann is on the inside of the grey and yellow one. Be prepared to see that grey and yellow car a lot. It got involved in a lot of battles. Just, I'm giving you a fair warning. Round turn 1, there was a bit of a calamity. A Trackhawk was really slow up there, which meant a white Cayenne had to check up, which then meant the grey McCann went into the back of the Cayenne because it couldn't check up in time. Heading now to the S's, we're following at the back of a grey ML63 that's trying to find a way past a police Cherokee. The Trans McCann got a very compromised run through the S's, through that left-hander. That's going to allow the blue McCann to get, well, just to outpace it down the straight. There was many McCanns in this field. You can see there the Trackhawk sort of was interested in trying to find a way past. However, just couldn't quite do it, and literally would just have to give back the position. Well, just would have to fall back. He couldn't get the position on the McCann. Up ahead, the ML and the Cherokee are just going side by side. This Trans McCann is trying to go up the inside of the blue McCann, and well, they're going chasing each other across the grass, trying to get that position. However, the Trans McCann would get that position in the end, into the braking zone through the S's, manages to keep ahead of that car. The police Cherokee gets a very bad run through that chicane there, with the ML being able to get that position over the crest. You can see there, it drops 3 positions with this Trans McCann getting a huge slide over the crest and at the final corner. Gets a bit of a tank slap and manages to hold it, but is going to drop back positions. I think loses about 3, and it loses a position to the Trackhawk at turn 1. Speaking of the grey McCann, it's currently battling with with the only Touareg that actually turned up in this field. The Touareg had a lot of handling, it had good initial acceleration thanks to its torque because it's a diesel, but massively struggled down the straights. The Touareg that was getting huge slides through the S's up ahead, that's a Cayenne, was battling with one of the old Land Rovers. I think that's a Series 3. I haven't a clue. I'm not really that interested in Land Rovers, I will admit. Anyway, the Touareg just goes wide and gets a very slow run, loses 3 positions because of that very bad run. This grey McCann is having to defend from the red ML, that's having to defend from the Rothmans, and the Touareg is sort of hanging around this fight but will drop back just due to its lack of top end. It really did struggle down the straights compared to the rest of the field. And compared to these cars, especially the ML the red ML had a lot more, had more speed than the Then this McCann that we're following as a white Cayenne, I don't know whether that's a replay or not, but did get a jump for some reason down that small sort of downhill section there. I also noticed I had a pop-up spoiler. Why? I haven't a clue. Anyway, the ML does get the position against this McCann, though. The McCann is going to try and throw it up the inside round the final corner. He's going to be a bit slow. The Rothmans McCann had a huge run. Absolutely massive run compared to these two, but had nowhere to go and just ended up in the back of this grey McCann and would spin out and drop a fair amount of positions. The Touareg, just through the first section, it really did keep up with these cars. You can see it's on the back of this grey McCann, and yeah, it just showed how much, well, just how good that Touareg was through the first section. That it's managed to catch right up to the back of this McCann. It's going to be on the outside for the left-hander there. It's going to get the position briefly, gets a bit of a slide, but he's going to get that position around the outside. That was a really good overtake. However, the McCann, too much acceleration, is going to have a look up the inside. It's not quite going to be able to get that position because the Touareg just was a little bit better through the corner. Does carry a smidge too much speed though through both right-handers there. That's going to allow the McCann just to be on an uncompromised run and get the position. The police liveried Cherokee was having a massive fight with the blue Land Rover there. The Land Rover had incredible amounts of acceleration. Not a lot of top end, but the acceleration was just insane compared to every other car on the field. Was trying to find a way past this police Cherokee. The Cherokee did not like the corners, but was very quick down the straights as well. You can see that it's just a bit sluggish through the corner there. The Land Rover is going to be on the inside through heading into the first corner, but it just drops back ever so slightly. The Cherokee did get a better run, did lock the brakes. I think probably a laggy replay through the first corner there, but you could just see the acceleration of that Land Rover. Actually has to check up to not just run straight into the back of that Cherokee. The Trans McCann has actually caught up to this little fight as well, making it a three-car battle for, I think this was probably about 6th place, I'm not too sure. The McCann is up the inside of that Land Rover, is going to draw alongside as the Wagoneer takes a very wide line trying to catch up, but that McCann just doesn't have the acceleration of the Land Rover. Neither does the Cherokee. The Land Rover is going to be able to be on the inside through this right-hander and is going to get that position to stick. The Cherokee is going to try and do a cutback, but doesn't quite have the handling. Does a little bit of rally crossing. The Wagoneer gets involved in this little fight. Is going to be alongside the McCann, but doesn't have the speed of that McCann, and you can just see the acceleration of that Land Rover. It is absolutely ludicrous just how much speed that car gets very quickly. It's just ludicrous. Considering the tyres as well, it's actually not, well, I say it's not too bad through the corners. He absolutely hated driving the thing, but you know, it was stupidly quick. However, the Cherokee gets a very bad run out of that chicane there, and the Trans McCann is going to be able to get up the inside through the final corner, get that position to stick. But further back, the Jeep, I've forgotten the Jeep now. Oh, whatever. Anyway, I was having a fight with the Rothmans, gets a big slide through the final corner. The Rothmans is going to be on the inside into turn 1, getting a much better run, is going to not quite clear the Jeep. However, the Jeep had much more handling, is going to stick it around the outside and is going to keep it with, helped especially by the Rothmans, getting a big slide through the first corner. That was really well held, managed to keep that position. The Touareg also wants to get involved with the sliding action, gets a big slide through the first part of the S's there. This Jeep had good, like, was really good through the corners as well. The Rothmans, I think, was more, I think was not too bad down the straight. I'm trying to remember my cars here. It's been a little while. But yeah, you can see there that the Rothmans McCann was starting to catch up ever so slightly. Just runs a little bit too wide through the top right-hander there, and yeah, it's just going to drop back ever so slightly. But you can just see, I think it is starting to close a little bit down this straight. I think it does have a little bit more top end, however, is not by a drastic amount, or not enough really to be able to get the position back on this Jeep. Up ahead, the grey McCann goes very wide through the braking chicane there. You can see that the Rothmans Macan did actually start to catch up at the end of the straight, however, into the braking zone, just ran out of time. The G-Wagon, this was, I think, the battle for second place. Yep, a G-Wagon was in third, chasing down the Maserati Levante. The G-Wagon had a good amount of top end, the Levante much better through the corners. As we're heading on to the main straight, you can just see that the Levante had a little bit of a gap, and it is closing, it is visibly closing. That's how much quicker the G-Wagon was down the straight. It was incredibly good down the straight. You can see it's drawing alongside, it's at the back corner as a going over the downhill. It is alongside, however it's got to stamp on the brakes to try and get the thing stop. The Levante, with its just better brakes, better handling, is going to be able to keep the position round the outside of the G-Wagon. The G-Wagon getting a little bit of a slide out of that chicane there, and it's just going to lose a little bit of time through the final corner especially as well. But Levante gets a small slide out of that final corner going across the grass. It's got to compromise it a little bit, however just compared to the G-Wagon, the handling was good enough that it would still gain time. However, up the hill, you can see that Levante had a small wiggle heading up there. It's going to compromise it as we're heading into the handling section where the Levante is going to be strongest. The G-Wagon is getting a big slide over the curbs at the beginning part of the S's there. Levante is all over the place, catching slides, just manages to keep it out the tyre bundle. Does fling tyres everywhere, but does manage to just keep out the tyre bundle. That's going to allow the G-Wagon to catch massively where the Levante is strongest because of that compromised run, and it's going to be able to draw in really close to where the G-Wagon is much stronger. You can see it's almost on the rear bumper as we're through the double right-hander at the top of the course of the track here, and as you already know, the G-Wagon is just faster than the Levante, and before the crest, the G-Wagon is going to get that position. You can see that it just pulls away from that Levante. The Q7 there's parked, don't know why. And yet the G-Wagon though is going to have to defend from that Levante. The Levante is so good on the brakes, however, Levante is having to go around the outside and just doesn't quite have the acceleration of that G-Wagon, so it's not going to be able to regain its position. So at the end, the G-Wagon would claim second place over the Maserati Levante as it goes for a big slide and then spins round, well, across the line. At the front, the white Cherokee managed to get through the field and run away, just being able to be in clean air. You probably saw it a little bit earlier on in the video, just going over the crest whilst the G-Wagon and Levante were fighting. You could see just a glimpse of it heading over the crest. Yeah, as those two fighting, obviously the gap would just increase, so Carver would win with the Cherokee. Our second race, and we would head to Nürburgring GP. Following the Levante here, that would again claim third place. You can just see how much that Touareg just struggled with straight line speed. Would go around the outside of the Levante, but then would just be stuck in the very wide and would go all the way to the back again. However, did get 2-3 positions going up the inside of a couple of cars. The Levante is stuck on the very wide line through the third corner. The Touareg is making up more positions. It's going to be stuck on the outside through that right-hander. There's just many cars here at lap 1, and one of the Land Rovers got spun out, and you can see that going almost trying to make it 4 wide down here. You don't normally see that, not in SUVs as well. It's just a sea of headlights heading through this left-hander, and under the brake. And now the teal Cayenne, yep, that's the one. I'm getting confused. Just outbrake himself ever so slightly. Just went into the back of the Levante, but the Levante did manage to get a bit of the Transmacan is trying to go around the outside of Levante, however, couldn't quite do it. Levante, unfortunately, just outbrakes himself ever so slightly and just tags the back of the track up. There was many incidences going on back here. The Rothman tried to keep it out. The Rothman's Macan, however, just couldn't get on the brakes early enough and would just go into the car. Yeah, there was a big crash at that hairpin there. It was absolutely big. The winner from race 1, that white Cherokee, was also, I think, managed to keep it out of trouble, but of course I had to check up massively through that big car park there, and was on the back of Levante. Levante getting a big slide as we're now heading onto the back straight. The teal Cayenne getting an even bigger slide through, heading onto the back straight, sorry. and would compromise it massively, losing 3 positions. Just heading into the braking zone now. The Cherokee is just there on the Levante, just tries, it goes up the inside, heading towards the final corner and accelerates the Levante and is going to get that position to stick. The Trans Macan is also starting to catch up to them just through the corners, but of course doesn't quite have the top speed of a lot of the cars. However, against the Levante, it is actually starting to gain ever so slightly, but I think just runs out of acceleration, and the poor Touareg runs out of a lot of acceleration and would lose the position to the pink Levante. Levante does manage to get stopped. The Touareg though is going for a cutback through turn 1, but it's going to be stuck on the outside. Through turn 2 is going to keep it alongside, but Levante gets a small bit of understeer, and the Touareg is just going to have to back out as the Trans Macan is up the inside of something, I'm not too sure what it was. It's going to get that position, it was a Mercedes ML, and is also going to be on the inside of that Touareg through the little right-hander there, but isn't going to quite get that position. The Wagoneer was having to fend off the white Cherokee. Yeah, the Wagoneer did like this track a fair amount. Obviously wasn't a big fan of the back straight, but did like the first half of this track. As you can see, it's just posed a little bit of a gap to the cars behind. The Jeep as well, just through the braking, the Jeep of Wrangler, is it Wrangler? I think it is. Yeah, you can see on the brakes, it just catches up to the Wagoneer ever so slightly. As you can see there, the grey and yellow Macan, I told you you'd see it a lot, also did get drawn into this fight. The Wagoneer just getting a better run through the S's there. The Macan is going to go for a defensive move at the Jeep. I'm not too sure what happened there. I think we may have clipped the curb that spat it very wide and is going to lose 1 position to that Jeep. Almost loses it to the Wrangler, sorry. Almost loses it to the Cherokee. Down the straight though, it is going to lose it to that Cherokee. The Cherokee's on the outside of the Wrangler. The Macan as well has a little bit better run, but not as good as the Cherokee. And the Cherokee is going to get the position before the braking zone. The Wrangler is going to get the position into the braking zone, and the Wagoneer is not quite going to be able to get past the grey and yellow Macan through that big braking zone. However, through the final corner is going to be up the inside, just out handles that Macan and is going to get the position, but the Macan is much better down the straights. The Wagoneer is going to chase it all the way to the inside, but the Macan is going to get the position past and is going to go back onto a more ideal line for it. The Levante also caught up to this little fight. The Wagoneer is on the inside of the Macan, is going to draw it alongside, and of course the Wagoneer has more handling than that Macan and is going to go around the outside of said car. Is still going to be alongside, still isn't going to be able, still can't quite get the position to stick. Again, through the other left-hander side, it is still there, but is not going to be able to get the position. However, on the right-hander, I'm forgetting my lefts and rights, is going to be on the inside flat corner and is going to get that position to stick with the Levante. Also going to try and overtake that Macan through the little hairpin there. The Macan just runs a little bit wide, and I think the Levante just goes alongside. It's going to be on the inside for that little battle, and big braking zone. The Macan outhandles that. The Levante outhandles that Macan, and yeah, it's just going to get that position. A little bit further back, one of the great ML63s is having to fend off 2 very good handling cars. The Macan, the Trans Macan, and that Touareg. Ignore that Land Rover, I think that was a lag disconnect. The ML had a lot more straight line speed than these two. Well, had more speed than these two, obviously more than the Touareg. That didn't take much to outspeed the Touareg, but yeah, did struggle through the corners compared to those two. You saw the Touareg tried to go around the outside at the bottom hairpin there, couldn't quite do it, but did manage to get it alongside, just ran out of acceleration. Down the back straight, the ML, you can see there, it is pulling a gap on both the cars behind, and is ever so slightly, and is starting to catch up to the grey Macan up ahead. The Trans Macan had a massive run on the ML, but the ML was where the Macan wanted to be, so it's just going to block it in, so the Trans Macan couldn't get the run it needed to overtake the ML. However, on the final corner, you can just see the closing speed of that Macan through the corner, the Trans Macan through the corners how much better it was than the grey ML. But the ML just outpaced it down the straight and would get up the inside of the grey Macan as well. The Trans Macan is just in the background of this little fight. The ML makes it clean move up the inside through turn 1, is not going to have much hassle from that Macan as well. However, over the curb you see that it goes slightly on 2 wheels, gets a huge slide. Trying to catch it is going to be very, very wide through this section. You can see the grey Macan was going up the inside, however the Trans Macan had too much handling for that grey Macan, and unfortunately just tags the back of it and would spin the car out. The grey Macan having to recover from the spin, the Trans Macan did weigh up for them. That's good sportsmanship there. Because the grey Macan, well, it got dropped from one fight, however, ended up in another fight between a red ML63 and the police livery Cherokee. All three of these cars were actually pretty good down the straight. And yeah, the Cherokee was the quickest down the straight of the three. I think, well, probably laggy replay in saying it locked the brakes. Having to defend from that red ML63, the ML got a better run but was very compromised from that Cherokee defending. The Macan wasn't in the fight, was sort of hanging back, but was starting to drop ever so slightly. This Macan was really struggling through this, on this track, and the two Macans further back, yeah, take a shot every single time I say Macan, because there was a lot. The Trans Macan and the Rothmans Macan were actually starting to get drawn into this fight as the three more straight line orientated cars were battling. This grey Macan though gets a much better run than that red ML, is going to outpace it down the straight, up the inside through that little kink there, and is going to get that position to stick. It's going to have to defend from the red ML though, and goes good on the brakes. However, the police livery Cherokee is just going to close that door, so the grey Macan would just have to close the door, well, would have to back out from it. That's going to allow the red ML63 to get the position back, and the Trans Macan also got drawn into this fight, with the red ML managing to, I think it did outpace the grey Macan. However, the Trans Macan with a much better run actually wasn't slow down the straight. I did say it was better through the corners than these two, and still wasn't bad through the straight, and due to an uncompromised run was actually outpacing them down the start-finish straight. The red ML outbraked himself and would go very wide out of turn 1, would lose almost 2 positions, had to be drawn alongside the Trans Macan. The Trans Macan had too much hand, but I think the red ML understeered into the car, or the Macan just ran wide on its own, and would not be able to completely overtake against that red Mercedes. The red Mercedes though is still running wide. The police livery Cherokee, you can see, really struggled through the first section there. The handling section really did not suit the Cherokee. I think they did actually lock the brakes ever so slightly that time, because it was very wide. I can't really tell if it's a laggy replay or not, just the amount of brake locking. I believe it is a laggy replay. But was really struggling on the brakes, so much so that the grey Macan was actually having to push them through the corners in the braking zones. The Trans Macan just dropped back ever so slightly, couldn't really make a move against the grey Macan. Again, the Cherokee really showing how much it struggled through the corners, just losing a lot of time through that hairpin. And through these S's as well, it really did struggle, understeered massively. So did the grey Macan. The grey Macan went on the sticky gravel track, and unfortunately just lost a lot of time and a lot of positions at the front, and it was the blue Land Rover absolutely flew down this track. Ren would take race 2, and he hated the car, but god, it was so quick accelerating. It really did suit this track, and yeah, it wasn't, well, yeah, I don't really know how to describe it other than stupidly quick. For our final race, and we headed to Silverstone. This the international layout, following the red Mercedes there, going outpacing the teal Cayenne into turn 1 here, and following the back of a white Cayenne. I don't understand why it's got a pop-up spoiler. It's infuriating. Anyway, through the big braking zone is up the inside of, well, was up the inside of one of the cars. I think it fell back. It was a Q7. The Q7 really was, the Q7 was really struggling. Only one person took the Q7, and it showed. It really, really did struggle. It wasn't bad down the straights, but through the corners, it was just sluggish. It was just really heavy in SUV terms. I know a lot of these cars are bloody heavy, but the Q7 just really struggled through the corners, and you just see it just drops back with just its terrible cornering capabilities. The Red ML heading in the big braking zone puts a wheel on the grass, and the Q7 just struggling to stop, just taps the red Mercedes and is going to put it wide, and it loses a huge amount of positions. I think that was about 5 or 6, going 3 wide into the final corner there. Many cars run wide out of our final corner there. The G-Wagon did spin out, and I think actually managed to roll it on the first lap. The blue Macan went round the outside and tried to go up the inside of the Maserati. Was not given, and it was a very closing door. The blue Macan did back out from it and would drop back a few positions. However, the Macan did actually quite like this track. It did have good handling compared to this red Mercedes, and would get the position back on said car. The Trans Macan was also drawn to the back of this Mercedes down the straight. The red Mercedes, yeah, was catching ever so slightly, but just wasn't really pulling away from that Trans Macan. The Trans Macan was really a solid car, just all around. But you had good handling, and you know, not bad top end. You saw it last race; it was outpacing two of some of the more straight line speed cars, because you know it was able to keep it in clean air. The battle up ahead, the red Mercedes wouldn't quite catch up to this fight for a little while, so I thought I'd show you the fight. Up ahead, the Touareg was really struggling through that final sector, losing a position to the blue Macan up the inside, and also to the Levante down the start-finish straight. Yeah, the Touareg was really struggling. The Levante goes 2 wheels, that's going to run very wide through turn 1. The Rothmans is having a little bit of difficulties there, goes into the Mercedes, it goes 3 wide into that big braking zone. The grey Mercedes being on the very inside is going to take a very slow line, is going to get compromised massively. There was a big calamity further back that ended up with one of the cars, I think, spinning out. I don't know if they actually managed to catch it though. If they did, then well done, that was a good save. But you know, I think it's just an unfortunate thing when cars are battling this close. There's going to be shoves, there's going to be accidental takeouts and things like that. There's a huge fight of cars just further back as the blue Macan goes up the inside of the grey Macan. Yeah, see, I told you that grey Macan is going to be in many fights. The grey Macan does outpace the blue ever so slightly, however just doesn't have the handling capabilities, and the blue Macan is going to be round the outside of the big braking zone. It's going to put it on the inside through these final couple of right-handers here, and is going to get that position to stick against the grey Macan. The grey Macan just really struggled through the corners there. The G-Wagon was having a picnic on the by the start-finish straight. Yeah, the blue Macan was really liking this circuit as well. The grey Macan just not so much, and the blue Macan that we're following would just pull a little bit of a gap. You can see the fight up ahead between Land Rover, so the blue Land Rover, the white Cherokee, and the Ford Wagoneer. Speaking of the grey Macan, it's now having to fight the grey Mercedes. The grey Mercedes going up the inside, heading on to the, I think this is Hangar Straight if I remember Silverstone correctly, which I tend to not. Yeah, just really struggled, and it didn't really have the handling, didn't really have the top end of that Mercedes. Obviously the Mercedes was on the inside, so it would get a better run than this Macan anyway. But yeah, the Macan was really struggling around here, and the Levante was having to go around the outside into the big braking zone here, and again is going to be on the inside for the next section, and the Macan just understeers massively out of that section, and it's just going to be a copy and paste of how the blue Macan overtook this Macan the previous lap. And of course, because the car was wide due to understeer, the Trackhawk also managed to get a position. Both of those cars just being much better through the corners. So you can just see the gap that they're managing to pull just by the first couple of corners. I can't emphasise enough the struggles with this Macan. And the trans-liveried Macan was also having to find a way past also the Touareg as well. But yeah, it was nice to see the Touareg, you know, in battles. I do quite like the Touareg. However, the Trans Macan, like I said, well, didn't quite get a better run than the grey Macan. However, the Trans Macan did outpace it at a certain point. I think I'm not really too sure how, but I think it just has better like just mid to higher end acceleration, and well, it's probably lighter. That's probably what it is. I don't know why am I trying to theorise how the Macan how one Macan outpaces another. It doesn't matter. The Trans Macan did get the overtake on the grey and yellow Macan, and yeah, this car was falling through the field. Not at an alarming rate, it would manage to keep some of the position, like, have a little bit of fights, but, it just really did fall through the field. It was struggling massively in all three bases. A little bit further up, the grey Mercedes would spend the next couple of laps chasing down this blue Macan. The Mercedes, being faster down the straight, you can see, is reeling in that the blue Macan here, and is going to draw alongside, heading into the braking zone. Well, the Macan is going to defend, and it has the superior handling of this Mercedes, and is going to be able to keep that position by just defending the inside. But the Mercedes, you can just see the acceleration is much better, but the Macan again is just going to be on the inside through this big braking zone, and the Mercedes is not going to be able to get the position. The Macan getting a small slide out of the penultimate right-hander there. The Mercedes just couldn't quite get a position. The Teal Cayenne also decided to join the G-Wagon with a picnic at Silverstone. You can just see through the first couple of corners that obviously the Macan was getting a big slide through there, but it was still pulling a small gap on this Mercedes just through those couple of corners. Both of these cars was catching up to that Ford up ahead, but they wouldn't really battle until a couple of laps later. As the field kind of just spread out at this point, there wasn't really much battling going on. The Q7 is having its own picnic on the left there at Hangar Straight. It wouldn't really quite catch. This was a few laps later, I believe. Yeah, it was a few laps later, and eventually the Macan would start battling with that Ford. The Macan going round the outside, or the Ford, I think, was trying to do a cut back, but couldn't quite do it. The Ford, though, was much better through the corners and would get up the inside of the Macan, but the Macan had to try and keep it on the track and would force the Ford wide. However, did let off to allow the Ford, to give the Ford back its position, and that drew in the Mercedes. The Audi did eventually join the other two with their picnic. The Ford was defending heavily through turn 1 there, taking a very inside line. A door was opening ever so slightly. The Macan was having to go around the outside into this big braking zone. The Ford again being on the inside. The Macan couldn't quite get the position against the Ford. The Ford was a bit better through the corners than this Macan, as you can see. It did manage to pull a little bit of a gap heading on to Hangar Straight. However, the lack of top end really did start to show as the Macan was starting to catch up. The Ford, though, would start moving across to defend. The Macan realises this and is going to have to go around the outside yet again. However, is not going to quite be able to do it. Does get a better run than the Ford, but the Ford is just not going to budge. It's still going to be on the inside. The Macan, though, breaks a little bit later. It's just going to follow the Ford, just pushing it through the corner. Well, in the meantime, the Mercedes is just going to be there, just waiting for an opportunity, just waiting for a mistake to happen. The Levante was also starting to catch up to this little group. The Ford, again, you can see, having to defend through turn 1. The Macan was trying to get alongside, just couldn't quite do it. The Ford just has too much handling for the Macan. You can see just the amount of the amount of sparks coming out of both of these cars as the Macan is just pushing the Ford through the corners. The Macan is on the outside through getting onto the Hangar Straight. They both get connected. The Jeep getting a massive slide and would go into the tyre bundle. That's an unfortunate way for the fight to end. The Mercedes is also managing to catch up to this fight. Levante as well also caught up to this fight. The Mercedes is going to be on the inside out of hangar straight, and the Mercedes is going to get that position to stick the McLaren isn't going to be able to get the overtake back on that Mercedes at the front, and the Jeep Wrangler would take victory with that white Cherokee taking second place. Yeah, the Wrangler started, I think, towards the front, managed to get their way through the field and would get to the front and start pulling away, but that white Cherokee was starting to catch up. And there we are, that was the 3 races with the B-Class SUVs. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these, I do apologise for that. However, yeah, you probably already know what's been happening. However, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give a like, comment, I don't know, comment if you want to see more of these. And if you want to take part in these, the first link in the description for Discord will be where this event is taking place. The second link in the description will be my Discord, in case you want to say hello to me. It's up to you. However, that is going to be it from me, and until next time, ciao for now.